Alrighty, well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you again for your time. My name is Morgan Wheeler. I'm the sales director here at Cities Digital, and we have a private client briefing today to discuss an upgrade to the latest Avante and Rio licenses of the Laserfiche product. And we'll go ahead and get started here with our quick discussion. Now, about 7 years ago, Laserfiche stopped selling the Team and United versions of Laserfiche. And Laserfiche really, just kind of some context, Laserfiche started out in the origins of just as a digital filing cabinet, and many cities adopted it during that period of time, many organizations. And over the time since then, going paperless and getting value out of systems that provide you archival and repository and workflow tools, that concept has expanded, and what users have demanded from these type of applications has grown a bit more than just scan it, store it, and go find it later. And Laserfiche, of course, as a good investment for financial firms, for cities, for healthcare organizations, and many others, has kept pace with that development, and that's a good thing. That's a valuable thing for you. All the people on the line are currently Laserfiche users, and as it allows you to use your investment in Laserfiche from many years ago to make sure that you continue to have the most contemporary functionality. It was really in the beginning about getting rid of paper, and so the old Laserfiche systems were licensed in a concurrent fashion, and that meant that you could have X number of users logged in at any given moment, but you could create more users than the number of licenses you had. There was really no workflow, there was no mobile access, so it was really about getting in when you could to drop documents off. Auditability was kind of a minor concern that has changed as cities and towns and villages and other organizations wanted to begin bragging about their records management and auditing capabilities. There's a certification, the DoD 5015.2 Records Management Security Certification. That's a nice bragging point and certification to have if you're a city or any kind of local government agency, and that involves some auditing capabilities. They just weren't in the old Laserfiche systems. And so as the product under that old licensing model, tried to keep pace, it became very modular, and those modules are very expensive. And so if you wanted to add something like the audit trail tool or the workflow tool or the web access or the web link portal to a Laserfiche system, it became not only cost prohibitive but difficult to manage from a technology and a licensing standpoint. And so the industry moved away from concurrent users. It used to be a ratio of 1 to 3 users, where one license substantiated shared access for about 2.5, 3 people, and that caused that infamous error message to pop up if somebody else was logged in or too many people were logged in, of the maximum number of user licenses has been reached. And that's, in addition to being annoying, it is a hindrance to regular use of software. It's an impedance to people using the software regularly, and of course people constantly putting in information that's processed via workflows or participating in those workflows, balancing public access against these shared licenses that's unpredictable, and ultimately it fostered bad system behavior and kept Laserfiche as just a digital filing cabinet. Well, the world kind of grew up after that, and Laserfiche, to keep pace with that and to escape this expensive modular and complex licensing nature, they switched over to the new licensing models called Avante and Rio. And the software world, when it kind of grew up, the internet changed everything, and broadband communications make things like instant access very real, and workflow tools at an expectation of auto processing. Mobile devices are chiseling away at the traditional notions of office work, and software now needs to be turnkey, easy to deploy, good-looking, fast, and integrated, and this old concurrent licensing model just got in the way. And what we see in front of us now are kind of the layers of use of a Laserfiche system that have grown out of that basic document file cabineting approach of the early 2000s and late 1990s. Capture and processing has expanded beyond just physical paper. Government and risk compliance requirements are more stringent than ever. Administration needs to be integrated and easy to access. Documents need to be accessible on multiple different devices over multiple different media. It's less now about just specific document management and more about content management. Emails are important. Social media is creeping in. There are a number of different types of information pieces that need to be captured and stored and processed that are not documents. And of course, now a digital document management system isn't worth the money if it doesn't help you manage your business processes. And that's pretty specifically what this workflow tool that's now free with all Avante and Rio systems do. So what was Team and United? I see both users of both platforms on the call today. Team was the old concurrent licensing for under 10 users. It was based only on SQL Express. Of course, it was a concurrent licensing model, considered kind of a starter system, but a lot of people overextended those Team systems to have just maybe 3 to 5 licenses substantiating access for 20, even 30, maybe 50 people sometimes. And of course, all of those people would find themselves considerably frustrated with that kind of truncated bandwidth to their document management system. United was just the full SQL version, also based on concurrent licenses. And Laserfiche reached kind of a tipping point where more people needed access to this system because it was becoming more significant in the overall overarching workflow, records management, storage needs, even public access, now electronic forms, mobile device access, and the old licensing model was just a total hindrance. And so Laserfiche moved to, of course, Avante and Rio. Now, I'd like to start off by saying that Avante and Rio have the same look and feel as the old Laserfiche. It's still the folder structure on the left and the content pane on the right. It is just a relicensing of the same product to a named user fashion rather than a shared user license fashion, meaning most people will need their own user license now rather than a pool shared by the office in general. And those licenses are cheaper, just plainly cheaper. The Laserfiche licensing can be up to about half as costly as the old way, which means that the system you already own could buy about twice as much Laserfiche now for the same amount of money spent, which to us as a solutions consultant and the provider of your document management system is a kind of a sin of sorts. It irks us to know that we have a user group out there who spent probably more than people who bought Laserfiche in the last 6-7 years and are getting less out of it just because of the licensing nature of their system. Now, I'll underscore that Laserfiche that Avante and Rio are named user systems rather than concurrent. You can still have device licenses dedicated for scanning stations and kiosks and whatnot. And the packages of modules are now much cheaper. They are either included for free, like Workflow is now, a $30,000 add-on under the old models. The Team and United licensing models is now rolled in off the shelf with all Laserfiche systems, so that if you are a one-user, very basic system, you can even take advantage of the automation that should be a part of these types of systems nowadays. It is an improved extension of this enterprise content management concept, which it addresses all information rather than just documents per se, and even sometimes more specific, more than just scanned images. We deal with all kinds of documents via email and our portals and electronic forms. We need a system that has all the licensing necessary to deal with the contemporary demands on a document management system, on an information management system. And those days, that is just an assumption of automation through the off-the-shelf workflow tool. And so the Avante system is typically for under 100 users. It's more and more becoming under 50 users. But the textbook answer is over 100, you're talking Laserfiche Rio. Under 100, you're talking Laserfiche Avante. There are some pilot systems in between 50 and 100 that are sometimes pretty neat for cities, especially and counties and local government, and even some of our larger financial institutions to take advantage of. We can get that enterprise level functionality even if you don't necessarily have 100+ users. They have the same underlying software that United and Team has. The major difference is that, of course, where United and Team are concurrent licenses, Avante and Rio are named user licenses. You're going to hear me say that about 1 million more times throughout this presentation. It's the most important difference. And of course, Avante and Rio come with the $30,000 workflow tool, much cheaper web access, audit trail, public portal, module add-ons, some of which now are prepackaged with the enterprise license, and they're all per user add-ons. So for instance, if you need the audit trail module, you want to keep an audit trail history of the activities in your system to substantiate a number of compliance and regulatory requirements on the public and private side of the house. Well, that audit trail module used to cost a flat $8,000 to add to even a 2-user Laserfiche team system. Now it's about $75 per user. So that same 2-user Laserfiche system would add that same add-on module for $150 versus $8,000 under the old licensing model. That makes all of the Laserfiche functionality much more accessible to any size business because you're paying for the size of the module you need. Now, Laserfiche Avante is considered kind of an a la carte system. It comes off the shelf with workflow, but things like the public portals and web access and audit trail, those are add-on modules that are a per user add-on, so an extra $50 to $100 per user times the number of users will give you the price for that add-on versus Laserfiche Rio, which is considered an all-inclusive license. And like I mentioned before, typically Rio is at 100 users or more, but if you're in that 50 to 100 range, this may be a viable solution for you as well. It includes web access, advanced audit trail, and a number of other features, including unlimited servers and repositories, all in that named user license. So it's considered an enterprise full-featured license that includes what is kind of separated out as a la carte items under Laserfiche Avante. All of those features are typically rolled into one about $700 per user cost that already beats the smallest team user costs, which were about $900 to $1,000 each. So we see a general reduction in price here to encourage the expansion and greater use of these systems in this switch to Avante and Rio. Now, Rio itself is very easy for large organizations that always need this multi-tiered ECM functionality that was previously cumbersome and expensive to add, available to all of their users or specifically made available to some and not others without having a complexity of full users or kind of full users or retrieval users, read-only users. Those are still available, but most of the features are rolled into what's called this basic named user license, and you don't have to engage in license specificity for individual users. You may want to license a portal, which again brings back kind of that large read-only population. But for your internal users, we're generally talking one named user license per person or station. Now, I will just reiterate that Laserfiche Rio comes off the shelf with workflow, web access, advanced audit trail, unlimited servers and repositories. Now, that last one gets missed a little from time to time, but that enables a city to fire up an additional repository for a special district or a police department or a school district, or perhaps even as they're bringing on additional files or testing new system features to create dev and test environments without having to license additional Laserfiche repositories. That's a very valuable feature that's now available with these Laserfiche Rio systems, and each of those individual servers and repositories were previously costing the clients, that are some of whom are on the line, $1,000 each, and then adding $200 to the annual maintenance. Not so under Rio. It's considered a full-featured enterprise license with all of the modules included. And so the bigger picture that we hope to convey to you is that the technology allows your systems and your processes to work as one cohesive machine, rather than these kind of siloed vaults of static information. And that is underlined by Laserfiche's inclusion of the workflow tool in all Laserfiche systems now. So our biggest goal would be to make sure that everyone on the line has access to that workflow tool in an unlimited fashion. Even for some of the cities that have added it to the system have managed to budget for workflow, there is still this need to add what are called workflow additional users to match every one of your additional named users that want to participate in workflow, and they have to be licensed to each one of those users, and it causes a very high level of unnecessary complexity. With a Rio system, that wouldn't be the case. Those additional workflow users go away, and everyone has unfettered access to the system and the workflow tool. And then the evolution of this workflow from its humble beginnings to the current workhorse really show how Laserfiche has made a resource-heavy effort to modernize and to keep pace with the process automation that now is kind of assumed as part of these document management systems. And workflow allows for total automated of filing, notification, retrieval, compilation. In recent years, it has become an award-winning workflow tool that has even beat some of the Microsoft products out there that have generally been referred to as the best in the industry. And just a little peek at what it looks like. Workflow, of course, free with all Laserfiche, new Laserfiche purchases, uses an intuitive Microsoft Visio-like flowchart designer to automate many of the document tasks. Let's just think about what we would use this for and what some of our clients are using it for instance. Auto-filing documents into vendor, account, property, or customer files for our private industries on the line. Auto-naming documents, so that every time a certain type of document comes through, it has the exact same file naming format, even with the spaces and dashes all in the right place. Of course, routing things for review and approval, automated OCRing once a document is in Laserfiche and the network use, for instance, is low. Think about that. That would greatly increase the speed of your scanning efforts. We have designed a little two-step workflow to watch for all new scans and run the OCR routine on the server at midnight that night, or just when the system isn't being heavily used. That turns your scanning speed into as quickly as the person can feed documents into that scanner, and also reduces system usage, because OCRing, optical character recognition, is the most resource-heavy process that Laserfiche does. When it's converting that image into searchable text, you can push all that to when the system is in idle, and this greatly balances system resources and speeds up scanning. Think about workflow querying other systems like Springbrook, PermitWorks, GIS, and a number of others for additional information to be added to a particular document, grabbing that plot number and automatically putting it into an index field or a stamp on the document, then having it retrievable through your GIS system, part of the Esri and ArcGIS integration. Automatically posting documents like agendas, ordinances, minutes, resolution to the public portal or the vendor portal after they've been processed and sufficiently reviewed within the timelines required by law before and after a public meeting. How about building and compiling agendas and other meeting packets? Automatically calculating contract renewal and review dates, or perhaps records cutoff, retention, and final disposition dates. Laserfiche workflow can not only route documents, auto-name them, file them, of course, but it can reach out to other databases and make smart calculations based on present information. So if we know that a contract is up for renewal in 1 year, in 9 months, Laserfiche workflow can send you an email saying this contract is 3 months out from renewal. please review for appropriateness to review, or get your additional 3 bids to make sure it's competitive, et cetera, and so forth. These are the types of things that Laserfiche is doing for cities and counties and towns and villages and other organizations that have purchased Laserfiche within the last 6 years. And Cities Digital, it'll be a constant concern of Cities Digital's until the very last legacy client of ours has converted over to the system, which is just plainly more valuable. Now, just a couple notes here in terms of what else is available under the Avante and Rio models. Something else is to think about here is that we need to have Laserfiche installed everywhere. So many of our clients have had Laserfiche for so long that they're not aware of recent developments in Laserfiche and kind of the industry in general. Software is moving to the web browser, and whether you don't want to install the full Laserfiche client on all your machines, or you want to enable full remote access for your field workers, or workers when they're at home, or even vendors, consultants, courts, special district, there's no reason Laserfiche can't just be made available to these folks over the web and through a portal that now retains 100% of the same functionality that the installed what's called Laserfiche Thick client does. And we have a screenshot here of even dragging and dropping a file into Laserfiche through the browser-based version. You're looking at web access. It's $100 per user. It used to be about a $10,000 add-on to the team in United Systems. And through this, the iPad and the iPhone and Android apps also work. So you can even scan through these devices with the camera on these particular devices and have an app-based access, not just a browser-based access on an iPad or iPhone or Android, but an actual Laserfiche app that we can install on a Toughbook, put it in a squad car, give it to a public works officer or utility worker, and capture information from the field immediately, if not just reduce the need for IT to have to maintain Laserfiche installations on everyone's desktop. A lot of you already have this functionality available to you. The one caveat I'll make is that the Android, iPad, and iPhone apps are only available to Avante and Rio users. Team and United can use web access, but they actually can't get access to the apps. And that's just one of the many new things that Laserfiche is reserving for Avante and Rio systems to encourage upgrading. Another example of that is electronic forms. The Laserfiche Forms module provides an easy-to-use web-based forms designer, as well as a process modular to do things like calculating dates and making some intelligent decisions on what other fields a person might need to fill out based on previous selections. The Forms Designer is a simple drag-and-drop layout, just like Workflow, that with many preset, zero-coding field options like radio buttons, checkboxes, drop-downs, digital signatures. The Forms Process Modular, like I mentioned, allows you to push and pull information to those fields. So if you've got some information you want to populate onto a field to help move people through it or ensure their completion, the Laserfiche Forms tool can grab that information out of any database, create a perfect, beautiful, filled PDF form that pushes the text right onto a form that you already use. It's just now perfectly complete, typewritten, and automatically emailed to the person submitting it, as well as submitted into Laserfiche automatically with all that field data available as template fields, which are the main mechanism that informs workflows. So now, just like we scan something in and apply a template to Laserfiche, and Workflow does all the rest of the filing for us, and imagine that same process happening, but coming in off of an e-form or coming in off of an email. Laserfiche Workflow works in conjunction with all of these tools to make sure that wherever something is coming from, it gets auto-processed, auto-filed, and minimizes human input as much as possible. That provides you a very demonstrable ROI. That's hard to do with the older versions of the systems that are pretty much just digital filing cabinets. Here's an example of the city of Linwood in California. Using the WebLink public portal. As soon as something moves through an agenda process, for instance, it is put in this agendas folder and made visible to the public. That synchronizes with a folder internal to Laserfiche, but only at the end of that process, that agenda or budget or minute ordinance resolution process, it just automatically becomes available to the public without even having to think about it. It's built into the workflow process. That I know many city clerks who are prepping things through a combination of Microsoft Office applications and then posting them to the website under one system and then archiving them into Laserfiche. There's no need to do that. Laserfiche is built to accommodate the needs of local government. And also, of course, the audit trail tool that I mentioned. A lot of cities have just kind of sidestepped this, and that's been usually a function of it costing $8,000 to $9,000. Now, like I mentioned, it's $75 on average per user. So 10-user system, you're paying $750 versus $9,000. A big cost savings there. And this is an important tool for e-discovery and regulatory compliance. If I had my way, every one of my Laserfiche clients would have this tool just to substantiate their document management habits even further. And so costs to plan for here. Here's an actual trade-in for Avante that we did very recently. They had a team server. They had a couple of users, two concurrent users, a Scan Connect license that amounted to a trade-in credit for $3,900, excuse me. The new Avante system needed a few more users. They also wanted to add in web access and audit trail, which were now incredibly cheaper. They needed four users now because it's a named user system versus the two that they were able to share under the old licensing model. So the new system was $4,265. Their old system had a credit for $3,915. They owed $350 at the end, which now got them double the number of users and two add-ons that would have previously cost well over $15,000 to add. They just needed to come up on $350. That's how easy it is, specifically for a lot of the clients out there who have made extended use of this Laserfiche team licensing. And so, again, just kind of breaking that out more specifically, the new Avante system would be quoted out per your needs for a named user system. You deduct the legacy credit, which would be the amount of money you've paid for all your Laserfiche modules over the year, and the actual upgrade cost would be the difference. I want to point out here just a couple of key differences here. And the top two arrows would show the cost for a Laserfiche server with workflow. That's $7,200 plus $15,000. So we're talking, without even the user licenses counted, a $22,000 base charge just for the Laserfiche server and workflow. You'll see the prices now under Avante down below. For the SQL Express version with workflow, it would be $1,500. For full SQL, $5,000, compared to $22,000 for that same server and workflow. And so now, so if you have that full server and you've bought workflow, you still get all that as a credit. And so that will command quite a few additional users and features under the new Avante or Rio licensing. And there's a couple of particular folks in the audience that I've just been discussing Rio upgrades with for a little while now. And I want you to know that your system, even though you might have purchased workflow, will command quite a discount and quite a credit towards that Avante and Rio system. And we're happy to quote that out for you anytime. And so what did they accomplish? Well, they got a $24,000 system for $350. That was what that cost of that system would have been brand new. Just a few links here to Avante. There is an Avante website, goes through everything that I just reviewed here today. and there's a couple of brochures about it as well. The Avante website here that you see, laserfiche.com/in English US products Avante, that has up-to-date information and case studies about folks who have just upgraded. There's also such a site for Rio. It's the same website /Rio at the end instead of Avante, however, and that goes through the decision process of upgrading to Rio for a number of clients and the context of using Rio as a new user as well. But of course, if you have any particular questions about your arrangement, there's a small group of people in the audience, and I know all of you, and I'm happy to run or rerun the Avante or Rio upgrade quote for you at any point. And I think it's a very valuable thing to look at. Laserfiche announces many promotions every quarter to try and encourage this upgrade. They are not making the apps or forms available to Team and United clients anymore, and we expect that the distance between the two licensing models to grow. Even though I will end with this just blanket statement is Cities Digital does not expect support to end anytime soon for the legacy Laserfiche users, the Team and United users. That's not going to happen. They will incentivize this to make it a good decision, and we will continue to underline that. But the point of this presentation would never be to cause any alarm or fear that support for your system would end imminently. There are a few too many legacy users still out there, including the Navy and the FBI, and until we get a lot more of the general Laserfiche users across the globe converted, there will be no talk of yanking support. But that doesn't minimize the need to continue to look at Avante and Rio and see if it's a good thing for your city. So if you have any questions, I'll leave this open. I'll watch the questions poll here, and I'm happy to answer the questions that I see come in as they arrive. So thank you again for your time. Have a great paperless day, and Cities Digital thanks you for your patronage and trust. Bye for now.